It was a cold Thursday night when Lisa walked into the dimly lit bar. She wasn't much of a drinker, but tonight she needed something strong to shake off a bad day at work. She took a seat near the center of the bar, the neon sign behind her casting a warm red glow. As she sipped her whiskey sour, her eyes wandered to the mirror behind the bar. That's when she saw him. A pale man sitting 3 stools away, staring directly at her reflection. His piercing blue eyes felt like they were burrowing into her soul. Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. She turned to look at the stool, but it was empty. Her breath hitched. Maybe she was imagining things? She glanced back at the mirror. He was still there, still watching her. Only now, his lips curled into a grin. Lisa's hands trembled as she set her glass down. The bartender, a burly man with a kind face, noticed her discomfort. "You okay, miss?" he asked, wiping a glass clean. She hesitated but decided to tell him. "That man, the one sitting over there, do you know him?" she asked, pointing toward the mirror. The bartender's face dropped. He glanced at the mirror, his expression turning grim. "What man?" he asked cautiously. Lisa pointed again, but the reflection was gone. "Never mind," she mumbled, embarrassed. The bartender leaned in closer, lowering his voice. "If you're seeing someone in that mirror, it's not good news. You should leave." His warning sent a shiver down Lisa's spine. Lisa tried to shake off the bartender's cryptic warning. She laughed at herself for letting a silly trick of the light get to her. But just as she picked up her drink again, her phone buzzed with a text from her friend. "Can't make it tonight. Be safe." Disappointed and feeling more alone, she glanced back at the mirror and froze. He's back. The pale man sat just 1 stool away now, his grin stretching unnaturally wide. This time, Lisa didn't just see him, she heard him. A low, guttural chuckle echoed faintly in her ears, though the room remained silent. Her stomach twisted in fear. Lisa couldn't take it anymore. She slammed her glass down and turned fully to confront the man. "What do you want?" she yelled, but the stool was still empty. The bartender rushed over, alarmed. "Miss, you need to leave now," he insisted, grabbing her arm. His voice was trembling. "Why? What's going on?" Lisa demanded. The bartender hesitated before answering. "There's a legend about this place. Years ago, a man died here. Murdered. They say he shows up in the mirror to those who are marked for death. If you see him, it means it's your time." Lisa stared at the bartender, disbelief mingling with terror. But her fear turned to dread when she glanced at the mirror again. The man's reflection was now standing directly behind her. Terrified, Lisa grabbed her coat and bolted out of the bar, ignoring the bartender's calls. She ran down the empty street, the cold night air biting at her skin. Her heart pounded as she reached her apartment, locking the door behind her. She leaned against the door, breathing heavily. As she looked up, she caught sight of herself in the hallway mirror. Relief washed over her. Until she noticed something. Behind her reflection, the pale man stood, his grin now wider than ever. His hand reached out to touch her shoulder. Lisa's scream echoed through the empty apartment building, but by the time her neighbors found her, she was gone. All that remained was her shattered hallway mirror and the words "I'm here" scrawled in crimson letters across the shards. It had been a lively Friday night at Mason's Tap Room. The bar was packed with laughter, clinking glasses, and a crowd unwilling to call it a night. The bartender Joel glanced at the clock as it ticked closer to closing time. "Last call, folks," he announced, wiping down the counter. Slowly, the crowd began to dwindle. By 2 a.m., only 6 people remained, including Joel. As Joel locked the front door, the clock above the bar struck 2 a.m. The sharp chime echoed unnaturally, louder than usual. Joel frowned and checked his phone to confirm the time. That's when a woman near the back door called out, "Hey, this door won't open." Another patron, a man named Chris, tried the front door. It didn't budge. "What the hell?" he muttered, rattling the handle. The group exchanged nervous glances as Joel's phone suddenly went dark. So did everyone else's. As Joel tried to calm everyone down, the lights flickered. A cold draft swept through the room, even though the doors and windows were shut tight. That's when a man no one had noticed before stood up from the far corner of the bar. He was tall, unnaturally so, dressed in a sharp black suit and a wide-brimmed hat that cast shadows over his face. "You're wasting your time," he said calmly, his voice deep and hollow. Everyone turned to look at him. "The doors won't open. You're here because you're meant to be." "Who the hell are you?" Chris demanded, stepping forward. The man tilted his head slightly, the brim of his hat shifting just enough to reveal a sliver of his face. His eyes were pitch black. "I'm here for the reckoning," he said, his grin revealing unnaturally sharp teeth. A heavy silence fell over the bar. Then, one of the women, a young server named Megan, whispered, "This isn't real, right?" But deep down, everyone knew it was. Dale tried to reason with the stranger. "Look, buddy, I don't know who you think you are, but we're not playing games here. Let us out." The stranger chuckled, a sound like gravel being ground together. "This place holds secrets," he said, gesturing around the bar. "And so do all of you." The room grew colder, the warmth of the bar's amber lights replaced by an unsettling dimness. Megan gasped as her reflection in the mirror above the bar shifted. Instead of herself, she saw a younger version, her teenage self, holding a bloody kitchen knife. "No," she whispered, backing away. Chris stepped forward, pointing a shaky finger at the man. "What's going on here?" The stranger's grin widened. "You all brought your demons here. This bar? It's a trap for people like you, people with sins that can't be forgiven." He pointed at Chris, whose face turned pale. "Should we start with you?" One by one, the group's deepest fears came to life. Chris saw his wife standing in the corner, her face twisted in anguish. "You let me die," she said, her voice like a razor cutting through the silence. Joel saw himself standing behind the bar, but his reflection was smiling maniacally, pouring drinks for skeletons. Megan was sobbing, repeating, "I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to." The stranger moved closer, his footsteps heavy and deliberate. "There's no running from the truth," he said, his voice reverberating through the room. "You'll all face judgment tonight." Chris lunged at the man in desperation, but as his hands made contact, they went right through him. Chris stumbled backward, clutching his chest as if something had been torn from him. He collapsed, his body lifeless on the floor. The others screamed. Joel, Megan, and the two remaining patrons huddled together, their breaths coming in short gasps. "We have to get out of here," Joel whispered, though deep down he knew there was no escape. The stranger laughed, his voice booming. "There is no out. You've been here longer than you realize." Joel glanced at the clock again. It still read 2 a.m. The realization hit him like a truck. "We're already dead," he muttered. Megan sobbed uncontrollably, her cries filling the room as the stranger nodded approvingly. "Now you see, this is your eternity." The bar began to dissolve, the walls crumbling away to reveal an endless darkness. The last thing Joel saw before everything went black was the stranger's grin, impossibly wide and filled with rows of sharp teeth. Then, silence. The next day, Mason's tap room is completely abandoned. The newspaper reports a fire that claimed 6 lives, though the source of the fire is unknown. Witnesses swear they see faces in the bar's shattered windows late at night.